Today we continue a summer of prophetic preaching with some words from the prophet Hosea. The way I find that book in the Bible is to open right to the middle, to the book of Psalms. And then it's Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. And then the major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel. And then we move into the minor prophets, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, etc. Hosea comes right after Daniel. If you're looking for it in your pew Bible, it's on page 1395. These words from Hosea chapter 1, verses 2 through 10. Let me remind you that Hosea was also an 8th century prophet in Israel, like Amos, but probably preaching a few years after Amos, when it was even more evident that Israel was about to be judged by God and crushed by Assyria. Hear these words. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go, take to yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land is guilty of the vilest adultery in departing from the Lord." So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call him Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of Israel. In that day I will break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel." Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call her Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer show love to the house of Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show love to the house of Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses and horsemen, but by the Lord their God." After she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, Gomer had another son. Then the Lord said, "Call him Lo-Ammi, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. Yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which cannot be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, 'You are not my people,' they will be called sons of the living God." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. When I used to teach a 5th and 6th grade Sunday school class, I would ask my students if they knew what a covenant was. Yes, they would say, a covenant is a promise. And they would say it all together because they had been well taught. "That's right," I said. "Is it just any kind of promise?" "No," they answered. "A covenant is a very special kind of promise." "Can you give me an example?" I would ask. "Oh, yes," they would say. "It's like a wedding." And they were right. A covenant is like that very special promise two people make when they are married. "John," says the minister, "do you take Jane to be your wedded wife?" "I do," John says. "And will you forsake all others and be faithful to her alone for as long as you both shall live?" "I will," John says. "And how about you, Jane? Will you have John to be your husband?" "I will," she says. "And will you forsake all others and be faithful to him alone for as long as you both shall live?" "Yes," she says, "I will." At the end of the ceremony, the minister pronounces the two of them husband and wife. What God has joined together, let no one put asunder. It is not unlike that covenant that God made with his people at Mount Sinai, that wedding in the wilderness, when God took Israel by the hand and said, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." Do you understand? And Israel, like a bride blushing behind her veil, said, "I do." They made a covenant together, God and his people, there at Sinai. And the covenant at its simplest was this: "If you will be my people, I will be your God." But don't miss the fact that it was a conditional covenant. It began with the word if. If you will not be my people, then I will not be your God. Understood? Understood, the people said. We will be your people, and you will be our God. And off they went, God and his people, hand in hand toward their honeymoon in the promised land. But it didn't last long. Even before they got there, God figured out how things were going to be. In one of those private moments with Moses, in the 31st chapter of Deuteronomy, God says, "Soon you will lie down with your ancestors. Then this people will begin to prostitute themselves to the foreign gods in their midst, the gods of the land into which they are going. They will forsake me, breaking my covenant that I have made with them." And sure enough, that's just what happened. By the time we get to our reading for today, some 500 years later, the people of Israel have worshiped every foreign god they can find, as if their lives depended on it. And they probably thought that their lives really did. If the rains didn't fall, if their crops didn't grow, they wouldn't have anything to eat. And if they didn't have anything to eat, they could not remain long in the land God had given to them. When they entered the land of Canaan and learned that there was a local deity, a god named Baal who was responsible for the rainfall, they thought it couldn't hurt to toss a prayer in his direction the way you might toss a coin into a wishing well. And when they learned that there was a fertility goddess named Anath, they thought it might not hurt to light a candle at her shrine. Who knew? It might just help the crops grow. But don't miss the significance of what was happening. Although it might seem like a harmless flirtation with foreign gods, it was the beginning of the end of the marriage. Because when the people of God began to bend their knees to other gods, they were saying in essence, "You, Yahweh, are not enough God for me. I can't count on you to provide for me and fulfill my needs. So I'm going to worship these other gods as well, just in case, just to be on the safe side." But what may have begun with a casual prayer or the lighting of a candle soon became an orgy of idol worship. If one prayer was good, two prayers were better, right? And if one candle seemed to help, why not try a half dozen? And if the rains hadn't come or the crops were in danger, people would head to the hills to worship. They would spread their blankets under the trees and engage in fertility rituals that went on for days, hoping to inspire the gods by their example. It broke God's heart. Not so much because of what they were doing as why they were doing it. Because they didn't trust God to provide for their needs. In the 4th chapter of Hosea, God says there is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. My people consult a wooden idol and are answered by a stick of wood. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They are unfaithful to God. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and burn offerings on the hills. What will God do with his adulterous bride? According to the terms of the covenant, he has every right to abandon her. He has said, "If you will be my people, I will be your God." But they have not been his people. They have behaved like prostitutes, as he says, chasing after every foreign god who walks down the street, batting their eyelashes at Baal, hanging on the arm of Anath, offering themselves to any god who would give them a taste of the good life. If you will not be my people, God might have said, then I will not be your God.